Before I went to Teen Challenge, my life was a catastrophe. I'd been using substances for 20 years. My life was one of death, drugs, and destruction. Every day was the same. I would wake up in the morning without any joy and without purpose. Growing up, I felt like I had a good upbringing and everything that I needed. However, when I was 10 years old, my parents separated and my family broke down. My parents did their best, but for me, this was a tough time in my life. The absence of a strong family unit left a vacuum in my life that I filled with substances, alcohol, and joining a gang. I didn't know at the time, but I was looking for a place where I could belong. I was only 12 years old when I first tried marijuana, and I started drinking. As a young boy, I committed petty crimes and often slept rough. In fact, I slept on some park benches not too far from where I stand tonight. Alcohol made me violent, and I got into a lot of fights. I went to so many funerals in my early teenage years. I had 2 friends overdose on heroin and die in the same week. I had a girlfriend that died, another friend hit by a train. Too many of my friends died by suicide. So much death and destruction. I was only 17 years old when my girlfriend fell pregnant. We were both so young. Dom was born, and I loved him so much. He was fantastic to have a son. I wanted the best for him, but I made many bad choices, and I was in and out of the family home. I was working in a factory and had a dream of becoming a scientist. I wanted a different life. So I enrolled into year 12 and moved in with a friend, but he was into heroin. Before long, I was taking heroin again too, and that put a halt to my education. I remember one Christmas like it was yesterday. Dom was about 6. We would have periods of stability, but they were often short-lived. At that time, things had been going well, and we bought Dom lots of fabulous toys and electronics and stuff. We had such a happy day together. But come New Year's Day, I was hanging out for drugs, so I gathered up all these toys and I sold them. I sold them for drugs. I'd done a lot of heavy stuff in my time, but this was one of the hardest things I ever had to face. It's still hard to talk about it. John was so little, and I did that to him. I know I needed help. I went on an opioid replacement program, and whilst I got off heroin, before long I was cooking meth in my garage. I would take it myself and sell what was left. It didn't take long before I developed drug-induced psychosis and other mental health issues. Over the next few years, we had 3 more children. Each one I loved and cherished and adored. I loved my kids, but I couldn't be the father that I hoped to be. In one house we lived in, I had a neighbour named Andrew. He was the first Christian I'd ever met up close. He was a genuine and caring guy. He would lend me his ute, his mower and other things, and we would talk. I gave him and his ute a hard time, but he was always so nice to me. He would take Dom and me fishing and would go for morning walks. He was such a breath of fresh air for me. All my mates were addicted to substances, and many, including myself, had been to prison. Andrew invited me to church, and people welcomed me, and everyone seemed happy to be alive. I got a glimpse of God for sure, but my life didn't change much. I met another couple here, Tarun and Mel. Tarun kept in contact with me over the years, and he and Mel are such a big part of my story. They are here tonight at table 41. That means so much to me. Thanks, guys. When things were bad, and they mostly were, I would wallow for days. I would sit on the couch depressed, windows closed, blinds drawn, watching mindless television. My children were right there, but my only motivation was drugs. Dom was a bright and beautiful kid. He loved rugby and music. He would often read to the younger children and get them ready for school. The kids would say, "Hey Dad, let's go through the footy." But I just couldn't. I was consumed by the thought of killing myself, but I didn't want to leave my children fatherless. One day I almost got my wish and I overdosed on heroin. Although I was revived, I knew something had to change. I was 32 years old and I'd been on drugs for 20 years. I called my mate Tarun and he said, "Hey mate, how about Teen Challenge?" The day Mel drove me up and the 4 kids up to the New Life Centre in Toowoomba, I was a broken, empty man. I thought, this is it. If I fail at this, I'm done. I really thought rehab was like a prison and I could just get away for a bit to sober up. I walked in and was met with a huge welcoming smile from Jan in reception. Colin, one of the staff, gave me a tour of the place, and most of the guys who were in that program were out in work experience that day. There was just one guy at the centre, and he looked so vulnerable. So I said, "Hey mate, stick with me, I'll look after you." Imagine your favourite prison movie, you fill in the gaps. The rest of the guys came back, and they were so happy to see me, shaking my hand and welcoming me to rehab. I was blown away. I was like, what's going on here? They were like, "Hey man, come look at my room. Here's a picture of my kids. Here's the kitchen. Take some fresh linen." I thought this was crazy. Everything was flipped on its head. It was such a good culture there and so refreshing for my soul. It was a perfect place. I remember Cuzzy doing a reading one morning about having value, and it stuck with me. I was like, "No, you don't know what I've done." But he said, "You still have value, Ben." And this was a defining moment for me. I thought, I can do this. I can turn my life around and find purpose. I have to do this for my family and for me. Having structure helped a lot. I lapped up the wisdom from staff. Men like Craig Watson, Rob and Cuzzy taught me so much by the way that they lived. I didn't know God or what Jesus was like. I didn't know that kind of love. But when I found it, things changed for me. I found healing. I found peace. My mind was renewed. And feeling things really meant a lot to me because I'd been numb for so many years because of addiction. The wind on my skin felt like a new sensation for me. I'd wake up early just to watch the sunrise. After a year in the program, it was time to go home. My partner of 17 years had left the family, and I was going home to be a single dad. I was offered an internship at New Hope House. This is Teen Challenge's crisis accommodation here in Brisbane. I grasped this opportunity. I get to help young men going through the same stuff that I did. I loved being back with my children, but it was hard. They missed their mum, and I was now parenting in a way that they were not used to. I just wanted to be 100% involved in my kids' lives, making up for lost time. I wanted nothing more than to give them the life that they deserved. I didn't own a car. Well, I did own a car. It was a broken down Commodore parked in my driveway. Getting the kids to school involved a bus ride. So I sold this car for scrap and decided to pay the money for it, hoping that it would help someone in the same way that I've been helped. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call from my old neighbour, Andrew. He's saying he would like to give me $5,000 for a car. I bought a 7-seater car for my family. Andrew and Deb, thank you. By this time, Dom was about 15 and pretty angry. He'd been exposed to things that no child should witness or endure. I wanted him to come to church and try something new, but he didn't want to. So we made a deal. I said, "If you come to church for 1 year and after that you don't want to go anymore, that's okay." Well, you heard how that's turned out for him. My life just kept getting better. I had decided not to date anyone as I wanted to be wholly available for my kids. But then I met Claire. She was a global children's pastor at the church I was going to. I was a single dad who needed a babysitter while I was doing night shifts at New Hope House. Claire was saving for a trip overseas. Claire looking after my children and saving money for her trip was a great setup for both of us. Well, cups of tea led to long phone calls, led to running together. My kids adored Claire, and I fell head over heels in love. I proposed to Claire, and we celebrate 4 years of marriage this year, and we have a beautiful baby boy together, Joseph. So now, when I wake up in the morning, I look over at Claire, and I'm so grateful. I have 5 children who are flourishing: Dominic, Lachlan, Harmony, Nathaniel, and baby Joseph. I'm so thankful for the forgiveness they have given me. I'm grateful that I've been able to forgive myself. I'm thankful for the life that I have. I'm really alive. My life has purpose and meaning. I have opportunities that I never would have thought possible. I'm now the team leader of New Hope House, and I get to support homeless young men find their feet and move forward with their lives. Cuzzy, you were right. I am not worthless. I can contribute to society and bring hope into others' lives. I can be the father and husband I was meant to be. I am thankful to Teen Challenge, the friends and family that have stuck by me. To Claire's parents, Trevor and Donna, thank you for trusting me with your daughter. I'm grateful to each person who invested money into Teen Challenge Queensland. I was able to do the rehab program because of you. Thank you. I have not relapsed since that day I walked into the New Life Centre 8 years ago. I am completely sober. So now when I wake up I can feel everything. I'm ready for the day, and I thank God that I now have a hope and a future. Thank you.